All right, I will call to order the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, in the James H. Crocker Jr. Hearing room on the second floor of the town of Barnstable at 367 Main Street, Hyannis, Massachusetts. To all persons interested in or affected by the action of the Zoning Board of Appeals, you are hereby notified pursuant to Section 11 of Chapter 48 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and all amendments thereto that this public hearing will be held. Introduction of board members. So with this, I'll call, roll call. Herb Bodenseek, not present. Paul Pinard, not present. Mark Hansen.
Present.
Aaron Webb.
Present.
Larry Hurwitz.
Present.
Manny Alves, not present. Rodney Tavano.
Present.
Natalie Pettinger.
Here.
Is it Pittenger? Pittenger.
Pittenger.
Pittenger. And I'm Jacob Dewey, acting as chair. Notice recording this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20. I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Seeing none, the first two orders of business are minutes from October 23rd, 2024 and November 13th, 2024. Do you guys want to approve them? Yeah?
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So those are approved. First item of old business, appeal number 2024-039, 25 Falmouth Road, LLC has filed an appeal of an administrative official's decision in accordance with MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, 8, and 15, and Section 24-88 of the Barnstable zoning ordinance. The appellant is appealing the decision of the building commissioner in issuing building permit BLDC 22-227 dated September 17, 2024. The permit was initially denied pending receipt of a narrative to explain the expansion of the mechanical bays on the property. The appellant's position is that the permit fails to take into account evidence and documentation from the town records and files which conflict with the determination to issue the building permit. The subject property is located at 95 Falmouth Road, Hyannis, Mass, as shown on Assessor's Map 311 as parcel 073. It's located in the Highway Business HB and Residence B RB zoning district. This was continued from November 13th, 2024, and we do not have members assigned for that item. And then concurrently, we have appeal number 2024-040, 25 Falmouth Road LLC has filed an appeal of an administrative official's decision in accordance with MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, 8, and 15, and Section 240-88 of the Barnstable zoning ordinance. The appellant is appealing the decision of the building commissioner in a letter dated September 4, 2024. The appellant believes that the determination fails to take into account evidence and documentation from the town records and files which conflict with the determination and do not address the concerns raised as set forth in the appellant's enforcement letters and correspondence. The subject property is located at 95 Falmouth Road and 123 Falmouth Road, Hyannis, Massachusetts, as shown on Assessor's Map 311, parcels 073 and 078. Lots are located in the Highway Business, HB, and Residence B, RB zoning district. This again was continued from November 13, 2024, and no members have been assigned. I believe Attorney Ford, you're here too?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Attorney Michael Ford representing the petitioner in both of these cases. You may recall the last time we were here, there had been a filing by the property owner just prior to the hearing. I had requested additional time to prepare and file a responsive memo. We are looking for additional time. We are still working on that memo. I have been keeping Attorney Kenny's office advised. He has no objection to the additional time to get that memo filed. It may be that both memos go to town council depending on how the board wants to proceed at that point. So we are asking for a continuance this evening until February 12th. We have agreed to get our filing to Mr. Kenny's office by February 1st, as well as the town, obviously.
Okay. I'm fine with, I'll make a motion to continue appeal number 2024-039 and 040 to February 12th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So that is moved along. All right.
Was that both of them, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I read both,
Right.
yes. Yep.
Thank you
I
very
did say
much.
both of them. Thank you. All right, so moving on to new business. Appeal number 2024-044, Richard Sundelin has applied for a special permit pursuant to section 240-94B, non-conforming use. The applicant seeks relief to codify a pre-existing non-conforming use auto repair at the property. The subject property is located at 970 Main Street, West Barnstable, Massachusetts, as shown on Assessor's Map 156 is parcel 026. It's located in the West Barnstable Village Business District, the WBVBD. We did receive a request, I believe it was an email dated December 30th, to continue this to February 12th, 2025 from Attorney Lawler.
Motion to continue appeal number 2024-044 to, when was it?
February 12th.
February 12th, time 7 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that is continued. Moving right along. Appeal number 2024-046, Brian M. Bunn and Jennifer A. Creedon have petitioned for a variance pursuant to section 240-14E RC1 and RF residential districts and section 240-126 variance provisions. The applicant seeks a variance to the front yard setbacks to build an accessory structure pool house in the northeast corner of the property. The petitioners request a variance to the required 30-foot front yard setback to locate the structure 25 feet from the property line. The subject property is located at 157 Pompanesett Road, Katuitt, Massachusetts, as shown in Assessor's Map 019 as parcel 079. It's located in the Residence FRF zoning district. So sitting on this will be our regular members, Mark, Aaron, myself, and then who did we have last time? I don't remember what my rotation was. But Larry, do you want to sit on this? Sure. And then, Natalie, did you sit on the last one? I was sort of trying to rotate through. I don't know if it was you or Rod.
No, not yet.
Okay, so Natalie, if you want to sit on this. And then we can have Rodney sit on WS. All right. We're getting some handouts. Thank you.
Elevations and floor plans.
Okay, thank you. That's fine, we're good. Thank you. Sorry, we had a laser fiche malfunction this afternoon. All right, you're welcome to proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Dan Creedon on behalf of Brian Bunn and Jennifer Creedon, owners at 157 Pompanesett Road, Katuitt. Some of the members of the board may remember I was before the board in April of last year with the same request for a variance. Since then, that matter was heard in April. It was continued a number of times, then withdrawn. My client went back and scaled back, heard the concerns of the board at that time. The board expressed concerns about the extent of the request for variance. I think at that time we were requesting 18 feet of the 30-foot on the front yard and some number of feet on the side yard. The board also expressed concern about the size of the structure for its intended use as a pool house. And there were some questions about some of the additional space that was shown that would comprise the proposed structure, which was being left in reserve for storage of kayaks and canoes and things like that. That all has since been eliminated. What is now before you on a scaled back design is a structure that is 50% smaller than the prior proposed structure. It is located roughly in the same location, albeit the request now, I would suggest to the board, is more on the order of something that could be considered to be approaching de minimis. It's 5 feet of the 30 feet. The acting chair on the last hearing suggested that if we were requesting, and I'm not suggesting that this binds anyone to anything, but there was a comment at the prior hearing that if we were requesting a mere 5 feet variance, that he might be inclined at that, if that were the case, to consider granting. I do know that this board is inclined not to grant variances in accordance with Massachusetts case law, that they should be granted sparingly. I would suggest that in this case, in line with the proposed findings that I've submitted just now, that the statutory three-pronged test is met, in that this would be a case where it would be appropriate for the board to exercise its discretion to grant a variance for what is now merely 5 feet on the front yard, no feet on the side yard. It complies on the side yard. The location of the structure, in order to be utilized as a pool house, needs to be located in close proximity to the pool house. It can't be located elsewhere on the property where it would otherwise comply, because then it wouldn't be utilizable for its intended purpose. So that leaves the northeast corner of the lot. There is a planter and a change in grade, a topographical feature that further limits the location within which the structure can be located. And so there is hardship to comply, to the extent that locating it elsewhere would make it a moot point. There would be no need to build a pool house somewhere else, like in the front yard, where it might comply. And then trying to locate it in between the 30-foot front yard setback and the planter, you can see it is cozied up right next to the planter, which you can't see it on the site plan, but that is a 4-foot change in grade, thereabouts. To further locate it in a way that would comply would render the utilizable space of the structure, they wouldn't be able to use it. It wouldn't have any, there'd be no purpose to build it. So I suggest that that is a hardship caused by the topography of the lot. And in the meantime, since we last submitted and now, we do have an email that's been submitted to the file from the abutter to the, bear with me, northeast, who is registered no opposition to the redesign of the proposal. So I would suggest to the board that I understand under the case law that it's discretionary in the board, even if the 3 elements are met under the statute. I suggest that here the elements are met. It's rare, but I think you do have a hardship that is caused by a topographical feature, and I suggest that this relief can be granted without nullifying from the spirit and intent of the zoning bylaw and without any detriment to public good. No one's that I know of is in opposition, and we have a letter in support, or at least a no objection from the person most directly affected by the proposed structure. So I'd ask the board to consider exercising its discretion to grant this request for variance.
Thank you, Attorney Creedon. Did any board members have questions for the applicant? So I guess why can't the pool house just be moved 5 feet closer to the pool?
I discussed that with my client. There's an apron around the pool. Moving it that much closer would put it basically directly next to the pool. It creates a safety issue for young children. It's a big family. My cousins, there's 5 brothers, and they all have multiple kids and now grandkids. There's young children, and that would propose a safety issue for young kids coming out of the structure and going directly into the pool. They need to maintain some separation around the pool to avoid that.
But it's a pool house.
Sure, right.
I mean, you said in your presentation that the concern was having it close enough to the pool. So wouldn't you fence to the corner of the house so your pool house goes into your pool area and have like alarms on your sliders?
It does here, and as I put in my proposed finding, close to the pool, but not too close to present a safety hazard, which my client feels that it would with young children.
Okay. Any other board members have questions? Or
I had a question just about orientation. Again, it was more about placement. Instead of being parallel with the road, could it have been turned in order to sort of meet that diagonal or be closer to the diagonal section? I understand the planter is there, but this is obviously a major structure that's going to have overdig. foundation, things like that, where the planter's going to be affected anyway based on this drawing. And I'm assuming that there could be a grade leveling there. I mean, I can appreciate that, they went back and scaled this back.
Yeah, I talked to my client at length about this. They had 6 months to work with their architect and their designer and their builder to come up with an alternative scaled-back design, and this is what they produced after considering all of those considerations, specifically that one that you just articulated. I talked to them about.
Sure. And just the question of hardship. Oftentimes we get things come in front of us, pools being one of them. We're working on it. This is not affecting a sale or an ability to sell. It's a little tough on that aspect, but again, that's just my opinion here. Happy to go to public comment if nobody else has anything.
Anyone else? All right.
I have a couple questions. You said you eliminated the kayak storage area?
Yes.
Okay, so, and maybe these aren't related. What are the basement stairs for? Was that where the storage was?
That's storage, going to be storage now, as proposed.
And you kept the bathroom on the second floor?
Yes. And there's a half bath on the first floor.
Half on the first floor.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's just on that same line. So the first floor, it's indicating, say, like a pool, ping pong table, something like that, game table, and looks like a wet bar, and a full bath on the second floor. What is that upper level? I mean, is there a proposed use for that?
The plan indicates study. It's just additional general living space.
Okay, thank you.
Natalie, any questions?
Yeah, I do. I'm just wondering about why is it a safety issue to be closer to the pool?
Young children, if they're unattended, they can walk right out of the building into the pool and then fall in the pool and drown.
Don't they have to be attended if they're within the pool area?
Yes, but I mean, it's easier to attend to them if there's more separation between the building and the pool. Plus, there needs to be some area around the pool to circumnavigate the pool as well. Having the building directly up against the pool is not necessarily ideal, typically.
Okay, I guess I would just presume that if they were that young, they would have life jackets on or whatever. And, or they wouldn't be in the area unless they were a little bit older and could swim.
Fair enough. I mean, I have 6 kids and, you keep track of them. Anything you can do to mitigate risk to them is
Yeah, I guess I just don't see
is
what
helpful.
the danger could be, but whatever.
Attorney Creedon, is there currently fencing going around just the pool area, or is it enclosed within a big fence around the property? My understanding that pools generally have to have fencing.
Yeah, it's a good question. The fencing starts adjacent to the left front, and it goes around the property, the boundary of the property.
Okay, so there's no pre-existing fencing wrapping around the pool itself?
It's enclosed, but it's enclosed at a distance.
Understood.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
not right up against the pool as you see sometimes.
Yep. I mean, I would tend to agree with the applicant in regards of moving it 5 feet closer to the pool. I mean, aesthetically, it's going to be right on top of the pool. It's not, having that distance, not only aesthetically, but also for safety reasons, makes sense to me, but.
Well, let's open for public comment. If no one else has any questions, and we can come back and deliberate after that. Is there anyone here to speak to this? And we did receive a letter, and I don't have it.
We did. It was an email from the abutter, Christopher Minervino, and he had no concerns.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that closes public comment. Public hearing's still open. Does anyone have any thoughts on this, or?
I have less issue with the size and the use of the actual interior of the structure. I think it could be oriented to diagonally, more in line with in parallel with the house, that they could still have a reasonable amount of motion, between the structure and the pool, and it would meet the 30-foot setback.
But by tilting what's pre-existing before us now, it's going to put that back right corner of it almost closer to the property line, wouldn't it?
I was actually just doing some sort of paper measurements here. It looks, I know it sounds nuts, but I'm using the scale that's on it, and I think you could reasonably have that back or street side corner and still meet the setback and still not be right on top of the pool.
These also are not variance conditions. I mean,
correct.
A pool being in a place on a lot is not a variance condition.
Correct.
I mean, there's nothing abnormal in this neighborhood about this lot that makes it a huge outlier. It's the same shape as the lot next to it. They chose to put the pool where they chose to put the pool. The neighbors put their pool closer to their house so they could probably fit a pool house. I don't see variance conditions here myself defined, but I'm only one vote. Natalie, any thoughts? Larry?
I just question the use. Like I said, the second floor with the.
I think your mic is off.
Everything.
Oh, microphone.
Excuse me. I'm just curious what the real use of, the second floor is. And I know something, you can label it a study, but really what's it going to be used for? And I don't know if that falls
I mean,
within
that's not really what's before us,
Okay.
but, I mean, they've submitted the plans with identifying a study, and, that's for other departments to handle down the road if it's used otherwise. I mean, our thing here is if it follows variance conditions, to give them relief on setbacks in a neighborhood that's been zoned to have 30-foot setbacks. That's the way is drawn. And again, I defer to town council on these things. This is how they want our neighborhoods to look, and I don't think we're in a position to change those rules. If anyone wants to make findings, I'm happy to listen to variance condition findings.
I don't think it meets 1 and 2 because I don't think the topography is really there, and I don't believe this to be a hardship. I do believe that this building could be oriented in a way that would make it as of right.
So can I ask the applicant if he wants to withdraw without prejudice at this point? No. You ready for a vote?
Yeah, my client wants it to go to a vote. Thank you.
All right, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so the public hearing is closed. So I guess someone has to make some sort of findings or findings to not approve? Is that? And or we're just making a motion to deny?
Make the findings, and then you can vote either to approve or deny the findings.
Does someone want to make some findings?
I will certainly try. I mean, somebody's got to try, right?
So we're just reading this and then.
I guess I would defer to Anna.
Go ahead, Mark.
I would defer to Anna so we don't mess this one up.
So what we've been told is to make the findings as they're written, and then the board can vote to approve or deny those findings.
But are we going to present, I mean, I don't feel like we were given actually, variance findings items, but just, should we make a motion that we don't feel there are circumstances related to soil conditions?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you could read the findings, and then you can give your opinion, and then, but you have to either approve or deny the findings as proposed.
Okay. Sure. I mean, do you have the memo? Do you have the memo or no?
What memo?
From the applicant with how he was proposing his findings, his variance findings,
No,
condition findings?
I didn't get it.
Yeah, because we're going to kind of need that, I think, right?
When, did you submit it?
I can't get into the Laserfiche right now.
I'm sorry, what was the handout at the beginning of the hearing? I presumed that was that. It wasn't?
That was plans.
Because we can't access it. You can certainly go.
I don't know, that's what I was looking to see if it would go. No. Yeah, it's working now. Yeah.
Those, of course, are proposed findings for a grant, not a
Yes.
denial.
Here, do you want to read them in? Or does someone want to read them in? Yeah, it is working now. Yeah, sure.
All right. With regard to appeal number 2024-046, variance findings, the statutory requirement of MGL Chapter 48, Section 10 for granting a variance is three-pronged test. Board finds that each of the following three requirements has been presented. Requirement 1, owing to the following circumstances related to the topography of applicant's land or structures that especially affect such land or structures but that do not generally affect the zoning district which is located. A pool house. Oh, okay, so. Okay, sorry. A pool house needs to be located in close proximity to the existing swimming pool, but not so close to it as to pose a safety concern. B, the proposed northeast corner of the property is the only location available to site the proposed structure adjacent to the pool. And C, there is a significant change in topographical grade supported by a rectangular retaining wall immediately behind and to the south of the proposed location of the structure that further limits the area within which the proposed structure can be located. On requirement 2, on hardship or literal enforcement, a literal enforcement of the provision of the zoning ordinance would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner because A, relocating the proposed structure to a different location not adjacent to the pool would preclude the applicants from utilizing the structure as a pool house. B, further reducing the size of the proposed structure by an additional 5 feet in depth would result in a structure lacking requisite depth and inhabitable space to be utilized for its intended purpose as a pool house. And requirement 3, that the desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance because the request to vary the front yard setback requirement from 30 to 25 feet is minimal. No abutter has communicated opposition to the proposal, and the abutter most directly affected, whose property is located immediately adjacent to the proposed structure, submitted correspondence indicating that he does not oppose the project as proposed. Those are my findings.
All right, so I guess I'll make a motion to deny the variance request based on the following, findings Mark read to the record. So we're voting in favor to deny?
Yes,
So,
This vote denies.
you can agree with the chair. And
all right, so I'm making a motion to deny appeal number 2024-046. All in favor of denying the request?
Aye.
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 Aye. So we have denied the request based on the findings presented. Thank you, Attorney Creedon. Moving on to our last item of the night, WS Landing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the board. Good night.
As Hyannis LLC have applied for a special permit pursuant to section 240-25C10 drive-through windows for banks and restaurants. Oh, my mic? Sorry, what's that? Can you hear me now? Okay. Appeal number 2024-047, WS Landing, Hyannis LLC has applied for a special permit pursuant to Section 240-25C10 drive-through windows for banks and restaurants. The applicant proposes to construct an approximately 3,366 square foot bank with a drive-up window and an approximately 3,605 square foot restaurant with a drive-up window. The subject property is located at 790 Ino Road, Hyannis, Massachusetts, as shown on Assessor's Map 311 as parcel 092. It's located in the Highway Business HB and Business B zoning district. All right, so this one will have our regular members, Mark, myself, Aaron, Larry, and Rod. That's all right. Okay. Attorney Cox.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. For the record, my name is Eliza Cox, and I'm an attorney at Nutter, McLennan, and Fish on behalf of the applicant tonight. We have some slides to show you to walk through this presentation, so I'll direct you to the slides behind you and I think and the monitors in front of you. Joining me this evening from WS Development representing the applicant are Katie Campion and Charlie O'Brien, seated to the rear, and then the civil engineer from Ty & Bond, Mark Doremus, is here as well. What I'd like to do is turn the podium over to Katie for a minute, who will walk you through the site and what's proposed, and then I will follow up after Katie's presentation with an analysis of the zoning relief that we're requesting.
Thank you. As Liza said, I'm Katie Katie Campion now, with WS Development. We're the owners and operators of now the landing at Hyannis that we have opened the new. You guys have probably heard from my company, other representatives in the past. We recently completed a renovation we call Phase 1, which is upgrading all the facades, redoing the landscaping, moving Whole Foods to our property. This was our plan for the entire project that we've been presenting. Phase 1 is the upper buildings that have since been completed, and we're now here to talk about Phase 2, which I will orient in a minute. As you can see on this version, Phase 2 is closer to Ino Road. Phase 1 was redoing everything that existed, upgrading those facades, adding landscaping throughout. We will all admit it was a very barren parking lot before. We're very happy to have the landscaping and hardscaping improvements. And now we're hoping to add a couple buildings and really bring the streetscape and enliven the Ino Road side of things. Quickly showing the upgrades that we did in Phase 1, facade and landscaping, and the new Whole Foods market. And so again, Phase 2 is the bottom portion of the plan. Whole Foods market is, I don't know if I can, here, to help orient. So this is as you're coming up the main drive on the right-hand side out front of Floor & Decor. Today it is just a parking lot. This is a more technical drawing showing that, and I will zoom in on the Phase 2 area. So as part of Phase 2, right now we're proposing two buildings, the two outermost buildings. Both we're proposing to have drive-up windows as mentioned. On the building on the left side of the plan, which is the west side, is proposed to be a bank that will have a drive-up ATM, not a teller, and that will be on the east side. The western building is proposed to have a drive-up window on the north side, which is the inboard facing. That will have circulation space for the cars around as well as a bypass lane. This is intended to be Panera Bread. It will have an order window and then approximately here, and then the pickup window over here. So this is where the drive-up window would be on the north side of the property. We've already completed some buffer enhancements, and we would do more as part of this project. We are not proposing buildings at this time, but in the future we might, so we wanted to make sure we were accounting for that in the design. We worked with Panera on the design to make sure that it fit within Cape Cod. These are some renderings of that, using local materials that are in the rest of the project. And then the same thing with Chase Bank, really working with the materials that we previously had approved and making sure the building felt like it belonged both on the Cape and at the landing. Through going through site plan review with the town, We had focused on the design of the buildings, like I just talked about, vehicular and pedestrian connection, and we also are now adding a sidewalk for traffic coming from the west. Pedestrians that are walking on Iono Road can now continue to walk throughout the property. If you're within the property, you can walk along the north side of the buildings, but now if you're on Iono Road coming from the west, from the Rotary, you can enter the property here. There is an existing crosswalk that we added as part of Phase 1 at the signalized intersection with the Cape Cod Mall. And again, in the context of everything we just worked on is the big building at the top, and then this is the proposed Phase 2 at the bottom. We're requesting the 2 drive-throughs. I will turn it back over to Liza.
Thank you. Procedurally, this property is, I'm sure, very familiar to the board. There have been numerous prior zoning decisions. They're outlined in your staff report. Most recently, some of you on the board will remember we were before you in 2023, and you approved a comprehensive signage package for the site, and you also established a parking ratio for the site. With this redevelopment of that Phase 2 area, that parking ratio continues to be met and in fact exceeded. As Katie mentioned, one of the prerequisites to coming before this board is to having completed site plan review. This Phase 2 did go before the Site Plan Review Committee and had formal site plan review approval back in November. So in terms of the relief that we're requesting, the site itself, it's a very large property, over 26 acres, and it's actually split by 2 different zoning districts. This graphic is not terribly comprehensible, but the purple line running through it basically shows the boundary between the B district, which is to the north, and the HB zoning district, which is to the south. All of Phase 2 is within the HB zoning district. So the HB zoning district does allow for drive-throughs for banks and food establishments and restaurants as a conditionally allowed use by special permit. And the standard that's set forth in the HB section is that those uses, conditional uses, do not substantially adversely affect the public health, safety, welfare, comfort, or convenience of the community. So that's the standard for the board. We respectfully suggest that these 2 drive-up windows do comply with that standard. As I mentioned, this is a very large property, over 26 acres, that can easily accommodate these 2 drive-up locations without any impact on the surrounding public ways. With respect to the proposed drive-up ATM for the bank, Katie showed you where it is. This graphic also shows a sort of a detail of the bank building with the drive-up ATM. It's located on the east side of the building. It's showing queuing for up to 4 cars. I think we've all probably used drive-up ATMs. I suggest that 4 cars is more than sufficient. If for some reason it weren't, there is still room to allow 4 cars to wrap around the bottom of the building, again, without impacting any vehicular or pedestrian traffic. In addition, the drive-up area is separated from the sort of future development space by a vegetated median, so that really channels the cars and keeps them neatly aligned as they access the proposed ATM. With respect to the restaurant and its proposed drive-up window, as Katie noted, this drive-up window is located on the north side of the proposed building, so it's interior to the shopping center. The design includes a pass-by lane around the queuing lane to provide a way around the space if needed. There's a dedicated waiting space that's mapped and will be signed right here, so if you are pulling up and your order is not ready, you can pull into the waiting space. If for some reason that's busy, they tell customers to pull into one of the parking spaces, and then the food would be run out to the customers. We're showing comfortably 8 queuing spaces wrapping around this building, and then there's obviously the ability for more queuing to come along here if needed. It could potentially impact those parking spaces, but there's plenty of parking spaces surrounding the site to accommodate this proposed use. So if in the unlikely event that were to happen, there's still adequate spaces and parking and vehicular circulation within the site. In addition, Panera, we spoke with Panera just to get a sense as to what their demand is. Typically, they have advised that usually 6 to 8 cars is more than adequate for their queuing. They indicated that only 20 to 25% of their sales come through the drive-through. This is different than Chick-fil-A, where you see like 80 to 85% of their sales through the drive-through. I think for those of us who've eaten there, like myself, you know this, they serve you on non-disposable plates. They create an environment where they encourage people to come and sit down. So it's different than sort of a typical fast food drive-through that you see in other locations. With respect to the standard of review, both the interior vehicular and pedestrian site circulation have been considered and reviewed by the Site Plan Review Committee, which approved this request and sent us to you. The site safely accommodates the queues on site, again, without any impact to abutting roadways. The number of parking spaces that are proposed continues to exceed the ratio that this board set out. And they've been designed to aesthetically comply with the zoning bylaw, but also to avoid sort of the back of house views from Route 132, since that's the main vehicular roadway that abuts this property. And then in thinking about the standard, and I'm going to talk personally for just a moment, the standard is no substantial detriment to the public health, safety, welfare, or convenience. As some of the board members may know, I was involved in an accident in August of this year where I tore my spinal cord and I had to learn to walk and stand again. Sorry, I don't mean to be getting emotional, but I am. And when I now, thankfully, I'm walking with a cane and doing much better, but the idea of going to places is very challenging. And I think looking for opportunities to provide a convenience and access to people who do have challenges with mobility is really important, and something that, it's a new perspective for me, for sure, having gone through this. And when you have an opportunity like you do here to provide that access without having to have people exit their cars to either bank or go get food, as long as there's no substantial detriment, which I suggest is the case here, I think this is absolutely the appropriate place and type of amenity that we should be, providing to the community when we can and when we can do so safely, which again is the case here. So personally, I would encourage the board to, from a personal perspective and with this new lens that I've now lived with and am living with, encourage the board to continue to provide this type of amenity, and that there is no substantial adverse impact. And that concludes our presentation, so we're happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Attorney Cox. We're glad to hear you're on the mend and doing better.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I guess the only question that I had to it was, is the bank drive-through it's just an ATM?
Just an ATM.
Because sort of in the, like even the suggested conditions, I think it refers to it as drive-up window. So I guess I would, if we move this forward, consider just conditioning it that it is just an ATM at this point.
You're fine with that.
If it was later, you can come back to the board if it wanted to become more of a drive-through.
Yep.
Anyone else questions?
Just one. So when we were looking at the direction of travel, once you come off of thank you. So with both of these, this is asking people to pretty much circumvent the whole building first before you get into the line. And will there be additional, I see where it says stop, will there be any additional signs on the road or signage that will indicate that they have to drive fully around the building in order to get to those the different drive-throughs? Because I can see, I wondered if it was on the technical. Is it going to become an issue with signage? The number of signs, like, are we going to be back looking at signs for direction? Or
we're not. I'm anticipating coming back for signs. Katie, I don't know if you've evaluated that.
Yeah, no, we haven't.
The
green light.
Push the button and the green light will come. There you go.
Oh, it looked green before too, very confusing. We're not at that point of design with the tenants. Both are very well versed in site circulation, so if we do need future relief for the signs, we would certainly come back for that. I'm assuming there will be something directing traffic.
Okay. I just assumed that by the summertime, a good majority of the traffic going through there is maybe not going to be as familiar with the layout. So that was just a question. Thank you.
What's the proposed space going to be in the meantime? Is that the center space, is that just going to be green in the?
Yes, it'll just be graded and sodded in the
Okay,
meantime.
so people won't have a free-for-all to drive through there when they're trying to?
No, there'll be curbs around, and the sidewalk above and on the right side will be installed as well. That's the path of transit.
Okay. Any other board member questions? Aaron?
Sorry, my only question has to do with that walkway from 132. That's what you've created there? There's no sidewalk on 132 past WS Development at this point, is there?
No.
In front of,
I don't believe,
like, Tiki Port and Volkswagen? And so
No, yeah.
what is the point?
initially, we did not have that sidewalk proposed, but during site plan review, that was something that DPW really pushed us to include as part of the plan.
Because you haven't included a sidewalk across, and forgive me if I'm mistaken, but across the whole front of the property going towards the furniture shop on whatever road that is. Airport.
Yeah.
There's no sidewalk running along 132 at this point.
I think there is, actually. I think it comes up from the lights, doesn't it? It goes diagonal up.
Yeah, there's a sidewalk that comes from the light at Cape Cod Mall, and it goes up along our property up to like Verizon. So it's not along the road, but it meanders because it's ADA compliant along diagonally up the side.
Right.
So it's not along the road.
There's green.
It's
there's
green space in between.
and then the
Correct.
sidewalk.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay, it's just like
But
a
these won't
sidewalk.
connect, that won't connect, this won't connect to that anywhere.
You can technically walk around the Verizon building across at the top that you can see and then come down.
You'd have to come like this,
Oh, I see.
Yes.
and then. that way.
You're right, those no sidewalks on
It
132.
makes no sense, yeah, it's whatever, I'm not gonna.
That's not what's before.
I understand, I just am curious about the layout and there is a crosswalk along the roadway that's been created because of this sidewalk to nowhere, so to speak. So I just find that to be odd, that's all. Again, you're gonna have cars circling the building or coming from that curb cut, around Panera to a sidewalk, anyway, doesn't matter, it's just strange.
Anyone else have questions? And Natalie, even when you're not on something, feel free to ask questions, because if it continues on, you could end up on it, so you can always ask them. Any questions?
I have no complaints. I mean, again, this is all contained within the plaza. It's not, queuing, dumping cars onto roadways that aren't all within the development. So to me, it makes perfect sense. I appreciate our Attorney Cox's, new lens, so to speak, with finding it, applicable in this case.
And it doesn't trigger any traffic change, like traffic study changes or flow total changes?
No, it doesn't, yep.
Okay. I mean, it's a special permit provision that, it's there for a reason, and I think to me, it meets it. But we can open for public comment if there's anyone in the public like to speak to this. Did we receive anything, Anna?
No, we didn't.
No. Okay. So I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Public comments closed. Public hearing's still open. Any other thoughts or deliberations or any other information we'd want?
I think it was just when we've seen this before, the biggest issue is what you were saying with, these drive-throughs have been emptying out onto single lane, 28 and,
Yeah.
situations like that where we know there can be a backup. I don't see that here or even a risk of that here. So I think it makes sense.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So the public hearing's closed, so brings us back to making findings. Someone wants to make findings? The only thing I would just say is, I just, if there was, like, again, that the bank is an ATM at this point, and that the food service window is a food service window, if it wants to become who knows what happens in the future, that they come back to the board if it's something that's more intensive or demands more traffic or speed or something. Yeah, I think just on the conditions. I think it's in the conditions, it said,
Do you have a language that drive-up ATM? Can that be the language?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because it refers to right now with a drive-up, a bank with a drive-up window. So just say a drive-up ATM or a car-accessible ATM.
Mr.
Okay, go.
Chair, can you make findings first?
Oh, you want me, no, I think, no, Mark is going to make
Oh,
them.
okay.
I was
Yeah.
just asking.
No, he was just editing but to get ready.
Okay, so with regard to appeal number 2024-047, WS Landing at Hyannis LLC. Sorry. We are required to make findings below. We're finding that, number one, the application falls within a category specifically accepted in the ordinance for a grant of a special permit. Section 240-25C10 allows for drive-up through by special permit. Number two, that after an evaluation of all the evidence presented, the proposal fulfills the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance and would not represent a substantial detriment to the public good or the neighborhood affected. Petitioner has shown that all traffic will be relegated to inside the property and not spill out onto the outside. Number three, a site plan has been reviewed and found approvable in accordance with Article herein, subject only to issuance of special permit approved by site plan review, November 22nd, 2024, excuse me.
All right, so
those are my findings.
Mark has made, proposed to approve appeal number 2024-047 with the findings as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
And roll call, all those in favor?
Aye.
And Mark, do you have conditions?
I do. I have conditions 1, 2, and 3. With number 1s, we'll read special permit number 2024-047 is granted to WS Landing at Hyannis LLC pursuant to section 240-25C10. Drive-through windows for banks. It will now read drive-up ATM and restaurant to construct approximately 3,366 square feet. Bank with a drive-up ATM and an approximately 3,605 square foot restaurant with a drive-up window at 790 Iona Road, Hyannis, Mass. And then number 2 and 3 as proposed.
All right, all those in favor of the conditions?
Aye.
Aye.
So Attorney Cox, you are all set.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, moving along, correspondence. We had a planning board notification transmittal proposed ADU zoning amendment. I think that is maybe next Monday. And then Evergreen Circle Pickleball meeting, 12/16/24. Sorry you missed it. That was at 3 p.m. The Long Pond Road Monopole hearing, that was 12/16 at 5 p.m. The Boxberry Hill Road hearing was 1/2 at 1 p.m. The final EIR for the Straightway and Hyannisport Water Facility and Cape Cod Commission determination, they determined it is a DRI. The Long Pond Road Monopole Subcommittee meeting was 12/31 at 10 a.m. Cape Cod Commission meeting was January 2nd at 3 p.m. It was virtual. Committee on Planning and Regulations meeting was 1/2/25 at 1 p.m. That was virtual. And a continued hearing notice for the Evergreen Circle Pickleball hearing is being held on Thursday, January 2nd, 2025 at 3 p.m. Missed that one too. Any matters not reasonably anticipated? Anyone, anything? Upcoming hearings, January 22nd, 2025, that's remote. February 12th, 2025, in person, and February 26th, 2025, remote. Anything else we need to know, Anna? All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn. I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're all set.